On today's show, it's long been rumored the Sens have had interest in Chris Tanev, but could they be making a double splash in the Tanev market this offseason?
And we continue with our 2024 NHL Draft prospect profiles with a contentious debate. Who's the best defenseman prospect coming out of the OHL?
There's a good chance one of these two ends up as an Ottawa Senator. That's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter. You can find the podcast wherever you get yours, including on YouTube, where a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. You can also check out all 80 of our draft profiles online on YouTube. Today is Tuesday, June 18th in Pilsy. I'm going to surprise you with this one. The Ottawa Senators have interest in a potential available player this summer.
Oh my God. Who is it? Who could it possibly be?
It's not just Chris Tanev. It's Brandon Tanev of the Seattle Kraken, a left winger with a ton of speed, but he's also 32 and coming off his worst season maybe in his NHL career. Was not a solid player, but we know at his best. The guy's nickname is Turbo. He plays with pace. He's hitting. He's doing it all out there. And if this is a big brain move from Steve Staios to tempt Chris Tanev, who's going to be highly sought after, 34-year-old defenseman who had almost more saves than Korpisalo last year, blocks everything, could that be enough to persuade? Sens fans know more than most teams. When they lost the Anaheim Ducks in 2007, one of those big reasons. You get Rob Niedermayer, Scott follows along. I'm not saying it's that level, but man, I really want Chris Tanev to play for the Sens, and I think that Brandon Tanev would be an upgrade on certain players in the bottom six. My two questions to you. What's your highest acquisition cost? What are you willing to spend to get him? And would you need the Seattle Kraken to hold any of that $3.5 million?
Well, we'll call this this segment, this mission, Tempting Tanev. And the reason we're talking about this, Elliot Friedman mentioned on his podcast that someone else mentioned to him that that could be a route that the Ottawa Senators go. So really, it's a rumor about
We're playing telephone, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So to answer your question, what would I be willing to give up to acquire Brandon Tanev? Look, this is a 32-year-old winger who last season had 7 goals, 9 assists, 16 points. You couldn't give up too much to bring him in. Like to bring him in would, I think, if you put it this way, if you brought Brandon Tanev in and didn't bring Chris Tanev in, I think I would be a little disappointed. Just because I think Brandon Tanev is the type of guy you're looking for. You're looking for a veteran winger, but I think you'd probably like someone with a little more size. He's not a huge guy, or not even a big guy, I would say. EP has him at 6 feet, 181 pounds.
He's physical, though. He does play that hard forechecking style that I think the Sens are looking to acquire. He's in the upper end of the age range, though. I've been saying 28 to 32, and he's 32. He'll be 33 during next season.
Yeah, and that's okay. That doesn't scare me off too much. I just feel like there are better options there. But if you're looking to acquire a bottom six veteran player that plays physical, and then that also helps you bring in Chris Tanev, then it's starting to make a lot of sense. Now, I believe he's making, what, $3.5 million this season?
This is the last season on a long term. He's one of those depth guys before it was cool, before Nick Paul and others were signing 7-8 year contracts. Tanner Jeannot, but Brandon Tanev, I think it was a 7-year deal at $3.5 million he signed back in the day.
Hey, solid piece of business there.
And people thought, they laughed at it at the time. Well, guess what? Now we're just talking about the last year of it as potentially, not even like an albatross, but just a little something you kind of squint at, because the talk too, to bring it to like, how does he fit into this Senators team, sounds like could be a Mathieu Joseph replacement. Not saying in the same trade. That's probably something where if you're Ottawa, you'd look to get more for a younger player asset wise. We've come a long way from last summer, where what are we going to attach to Mathieu Joseph after he didn't score 5-on-5 2 years ago, but last year's better. So hopefully you can get an asset. And then if you're plugging in Brandon Tanev, then you have the asset from the potential trade as well. I can see where it would make a bit of sense, but Joseph at 2.95, you're still paying almost $600,000 more against the cap. It's a curious one a bit, but stylistically, I get it. And then the big brain aspect, you got to respect it if it does end up being a 2-for-1 ticket.
Sens fans love imagining bringing brothers together. Like, remember when Matthew Tkachuk wanted out of Calgary?
Turns out that would have been a good acquisition.
Yeah, ask Bill Zito about that one.
Who else? Did we ever have Zbynek McCulloch rumors back in the day?
Or Michael Stone? They could have got Matthew Joseph's brother as well, bring them along. Like, there's a lot of potential for brothers on this team. But I don't know, that would be a cool story. And like, bringing one of those guys in, let alone both of them, Ross, I think that could open the doors to a big culture change as well. Like, these guys seem like salt of the earth, respected players around the NHL. They play a physical, unforgiving game. They leave it all on the ice. Like, these are the types of dudes you're trying to bring to the Ottawa Senators. So I'm not against it. I'll say that. I'm skeptical about the Brandon Tanev rumor, because you asked me, do you think Seattle's gonna retain anything or sweeten anything? I don't think the Seattle Kraken are gonna retain any salary. They don't seem like a team that would be willing to do that. That doesn't make a lot of mathematical sense, probably. But them being able to get $3.5 million off the books allows them to probably go big game hunting, which I think they need to do, especially on that back end. Or, I mean, even up front, Ross, like, or honestly, even in goal, like the Seattle Kraken, they need a star type player somewhere on that team.
It was a 6-year contract that Brandon Tanev signed. It started in 2019. And even though he's coming off his worst offensive season in quite some time, he also had a career year last year when he had 35 points, 16 goals, plus 21. That's the type of guy who the Senators could use in their bottom 6. Let us know in the comments what you think about Brandon Tanev, what you think about our tinfoil hat conspiracy, and more. Whatever's on your mind, let us know in the comments on YouTube. Goes a long way to helping the show grow, and make sure to smash the like button as well. Pilsy, I cannot wait to get into the Sam Dickinson, Zayne Parekh discussion with you. But first, stick taps are in order to friend of the show, Vladimir Nikitin. Vladimir Nikitin from the Chilliwack Chiefs last season of the BCHL. Well, he has signed a professional contract with the KHL and their Kazakh team, HK Baris, if I am saying that proper. But Nikitin has signed a 1-year contract there, so it's not like, oh, he's buried over there. He's going to be over there for a long time. Still up in the air what happens after, but it'll be good to see him playing against the... I mean, I don't think he'll play in the KHL to start. He's 18, 19, but MHL is, even though he's in Kazakhstan, he's no longer going back to that league, a little bit lower. The MHL is where he'll be the Russian Junior League. So looking forward to seeing his development, and Ottawa hockey fans will get to see him at the World Juniors because Kazakhstan won the Division I last year with him in goal. So they'll be in Ottawa ready to compete at the top level. That'll be a fun test for Nikitin. I'm assuming it's already circled on his calendar.
Yeah, I think this is a good move for him. I think it was a good effort to come over to North America, to come to the BCHL, especially a young kid trying to learn English. We had him on the show and he did a great job.
Good English.
So I think, give that a try, see how it goes. Maybe he's getting a little homesick. Maybe the offer was too good to refuse to go back. And I think he's going to be getting good experience. You're going to get, obviously, raised competition levels. And then maybe after a year or two, he comes back to North America, but in a different league, in a different position.
Yeah, and not to mention that this is the team he grew up playing for. So Baris, it's just kind of a natural fit for him to go back there. Now, the Senators have until June 1st, 2027, until his rights expire. So no rush to get Vladimir Nikitin signed. It'll be fun to watch a slow and steady development for last year's 7th round pick. His stats in the BCHL, .898 save percentage in the regular season, but interestingly enough, with that save percentage, hey, he got the wins 15-6-3 with a .276 goals against average, .944 save percentage at the World Junior Division I that we mentioned. They got the gold medal. All right, gold. These two kids know a lot about that. Two Canadian up-and-coming stud defensemen, OHL's best. They went head-to-head in the OHL finals. They went head-to-head in the Memorial Cup finals. And now they go head-to-head on LOSP at the end of this episode. Our official pick between Zayne Parekh and Sam Dickinson. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You guys know summertime means baseball. The NBA Finals are over. Congrats to the Boston Celtics. The Stanley Cup Finals. Let's see if the Florida Panthers can end it tonight or Edmonton stays alive.
Edmonton's staying alive.
Oh, okay. We'll get to that, Ross. And you can bet all of that on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from the finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park to who's going to get a hat trick. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. Ross, I know you've got that Oilers future. I know you're Captain Canada here. Are you saying Edmonton wins this one and just survives, or they bring it all the way home?
Well, yeah, no, for sure. We're just going to take it one game at a time. Win one on the road. We'll come back. We got our fans. We're feeling good at home, and we'll see what happens at Rogers Place on. There's so many days off in this series. I can't keep track of when the game is. It Friday? Yeah, because we'll have another travel day.
Going to finish before the draft? I'm a little concerned.
I don't think so.
Close here,
play game 7 at the Sphere.
That would be sick. So if you're with Ross and you're riding with the Oilers, go put your money where your mouth is on FanDuel. Or if you think Florida just took a night off, let Edmonton have a party, and then said,
nap.
a cat nap, and said, hey, we want to win this at home. Like me, I think the Florida Panthers are going to put them away tonight. Then also you can have your say, but do it on North America's #1 sportsbook. You guys already know it. It's FanDuel.
FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Pilsy. Man, I cannot wait. Just 2 weeks and 3 days away until the Ottawa Senators will get their top prospect guaranteed and potentially even their second and third top prospects in the pool. Pilsy, we've got our mock draft coming out, and every expert has told us that at 7, there is going to be an amazing opportunity to bolster either a positional need or elevate where the Senators rank in terms of the overall prospect landscape.
Oh, absolutely. Whoever is selected at 7th overall will not only be the Ottawa Senators' best prospect right now, they'll be the Ottawa Senators' best prospect since 2020. That's how deep and how barren this prospect pipeline has been for this organization. Scott Wheeler ranked them 31st out of 32 teams in the league when it comes to prospect pipeline depth. So We need this here. And Ross, the good thing is, unlike years past where we had the old regime that would make picks that even though you and I have studied the draft meticulously, we still had to Google and had no clue who they were. I feel like even if the Ottawa Senators decided to go outside of the consensus range of players here, we would still get a player we would find a way to spin zone into something positive. There's just so much talent in the top 15 group of prospects in this draft. I'm going to have a hard time being upset at whoever they pick, honestly.
Stay tuned for later in the week. No, next week. Next week, we are going to unveil our own draft list, and Bob McKenzie on Monday will have his final rankings, which go as closely to the draft as, and oh no, ours actually did.
We combined the eye test with math, Ross. That's where Bob's strictly eye test. You got to get some math in there. You guys know we're math guys.
Couple math guys. We had 29 out of the 32 players in our top 32, and I've been updating the rankings as the final ones have come out. Pillsy, our final rankings will be different than how we're counting down because we only have the information that's in front of us. Our final rankings will be out. We will put a link on Twitter. Everyone can follow along during the draft in Vegas. So excited for all that to come. And we are at the Senators' top range, 7 and 6. Pillsy, it's time. All right, to our NHL draft rankings, coming in at number 7 from the London Knights, left defenseman Sam Dickinson. They say a jack of all trades does everything well. What do you call someone who does everything exceptionally well?
A master of all trades. The saying is jack of all trades, master of none. Well, so if someone did everything exceptionally well, they would be a master of all trades. However, Ross,
and a jack of none.
Yeah, and a jack of none. I would not put Sam Dickinson as a master of all trades. However, if there's one thing that stands out for him that you want to stand out for a defenseman, it's skating. This kid is a very good skater. There's no denying that. He's a powerful skater, and EP really kind of spreads out how they feel about him. They awarded him the second best four-way mobility, third best transition D-man, and fourth best neutral zone defender. So you sprinkle in a bit of talent all the way around the ice with Sam Dickinson. He's got the size that you want at 6'3", 203 pounds. So on the right side of 6, on the right side of 200 pounds for a defenseman. He's a left shot. In 66 games last season with the London Knights, he had 18 goals, 52 assists, good for 70 points. How about that whopping plus 56 rating? You'll love to see that, Ross.
That's second in the OHL last season, only to Sens prospect Matthew Andonovski.
Oh, actually? Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were pulling a joke on me there. That's impressive. And then in the playoffs, he kept things going points-wise, 13 points in 18 OHL playoff games. Of course, the London Knights lost the Mem Cup to the Saginaw Spirit, so that just makes the whole Dickinson versus Parekh debate even further interesting here.
Well, Sam Dickinson did score the game-tying goal in that final. Like, he was the best player on the ice despite the
and
loss.
had an assist. So like he showed up for sure. Sam Dickinson really excels on the power play, Ross. He had 28 power play points. 11 of his 18 goals were on the power play. So this is a guy that there's a reason that he's ranked so high, and NHL scouts, I think they look at a player like this and they see a lot of projectable tools that will allow him to eventually develop into a top 4 NHL defenseman.
He comes in with an average of 7.6, but there's still a wide range considering how high we are in the draft. McKean's has him at 3 on their list. For Bob McKenzie, he's 6. He's 6 for Wheeler. He's 8 for Button, 9 for Peters, and 10th for elite prospects. But teams are just going to salivate over the physical package and then what the offensive upside is in all situations. The fact that you mentioned he dominates on the power play and He's a solid penalty killer that I think is going to improve, and at the NHL level is going to be able to fill that role. He's a player that coaches love, but this year, and the way things work in London, is the veterans get the most minutes. He was in a second pair role almost all year. So does that worry you that, he hasn't gone up against the top competition? No, that should not be a worry, because within games, obviously, he's going to be facing that. The way the London Knights dominated the postseason, he was a huge part of that. So you're not worried about the competition level, but I think it says even more that he's able to put up these counting stats without playing the 26, 27 minutes that some other defensemen got to play. He did his role perfectly. He's going to be a low maintenance player that you're able to stick in your lineup. I don't love the comparison because I think Jake Sanderson's more dynamic when he has the puck on his stick. But in terms of a trajectory that is just going the right way and a low maintenance style that you will not have to worry about him if you're a coach. Sure, there's things he has to work on, but he's motivated enough to do it himself. And you just have him in a top 4 role for the next 10 years. That is as safe a top 4 pick as there is in the draft. Top 4 defenseman, I should say, not selection in this draft. Lots of good D. But Pilsy, teams are going to salivate on that. This is the type of player that I think we could see off the board early. Like, I'm talking Anaheim, even though they're loaded on the left. I'm talking probably more so Columbus. And then it gets interesting at Utah because Montreal likely to take a forward. But that all, even though, funny enough, Sam Dickinson, his whole family is all Habs fans. So funny that I kind of just glossed over that accidentally. But Pilsy, like, what would you say the biggest thing for him to work on is? Because we're just basically giving him glowing reviews off the board so far.
Yeah, and for good reason, Ross. There's a lot to like about Sam Dickinson. I would say what you're worried about with Sam Dickinson is maybe a bit of the hockey sense. Like Will Scouch did a video on him and showed just a bunch of examples where Dickinson gets the puck and instead of scanning and making a good outlet pass or finding a smart, efficient way to get the puck out of the zone, sometimes he'll just be like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this, and just flip it out. And if you do that once in a while, that's fine. But you're essentially turning it over and then waiting for the opponent to rush you, and then hoping to have a better plan of attack next time, which isn't the best situation for a guy that is going to be playing a lot of power play, going to be playing a lot of big minutes as he develops here. So you'd like to see him kind of, unless he's panicked and in pressure, sure, you can flip it out, but if you've got time and space, try to make a better play there. And then David saying the we, obviously, you guys know I reference his videos a lot on his Let's Watch video, or it was a film room article rather. He was saying, and this quote kind of really hit for me, Ross. He says, Dickinson reacts to the game more than he anticipates it. Now, that's not necessarily like a giant red flag. Like you want to be able to react. Like hockey's not a game of it's not like baseball where it's like one action, a reaction, and you can kind of just base it off that. It's constant flow, so you have to react sometimes. But you want your top defensemen to be able to anticipate and to be able to have that hockey sense where they can read what's going on with the play and they can already kind of calculate how things are going to turn out, where the puck's going to be, where the most important spot they need to defend is. And it just seems with Dickinson, he's kind of like, he's just going with what's in front of him right away, and then he's going to deal with what happens after the fact, which, again, I'm not trying to say this is a glaring issue. It's just something where you want your top defenseman to have that better sense of awareness and preparation for how the play is going to unfold.
You'll notice I mentioned top 4 defensemen when I was talking. That's the thing. It could just be that's holding him back from being a no doubt top pair defenseman, which he could very well be, a guy who plays almost like Drew Doughty, where he's maybe not putting up that offensive production, but he's able to play 27, 28 minutes in all situations. Now, Pilsy, I look at him as a 3-tier projectability. Like, yeah, there's that safe top 4 defenseman. I like how elite prospects use Noah Hannafin. I think that's a good example of a guy who maybe doesn't get the notoriety around the league unless he's on the trade market. Obviously, there was a bit more talk about him this season, but he's just, reliable. But then there's like a couple steps up that I think he could reach. Like, could he be at the Brady Shea level? Can he get his defensive game that good? He'll have to commit to it, but I think in the London system, he could. And then we're seeing the high end is people thinking he could be like Alex Pietrangelo. He's already got the size. He uses his physicality. We haven't even mentioned that part, but at the start of the year, he was listed at 190, and he's 15 pounds up already. And at a 6'3" frame, you'd think he could be playing at 215 potentially. And then you're like, okay, this guy might be a shutdown defenseman if he can maneuver his game or evolve it when he gets the next level. This gap is so tight between all the defensemen at this top end range. And we know that Dave Poulin and the Sens have said that hockey sense is among the top things they look for. Well, this guy's smart. I'll tell you that much. Yesterday at during an interview with TSN's Mark Masters, Sam Dickinson said that he's spoken quite a bit with the Ottawa Senators, and he said that it's gone really well. He says it was one of the more intense interviews, knowing that there's been some talk about him heading to Ottawa as well. Thought he did really good job in the interview, and this is the line that kind of makes a tear come to your eye based on what we've been through these last 20 years, Pilsy. You see the front office at the Combine, the Sens front office. It's a very well-run organization. It would be an absolute honor to go there at 7.
Love it. And I mean, that's the thing. You can tell he's a good kid. When you've got a defenseman that can skate with size in a good program too, like the London Knights, Ross, you mentioned he wasn't exactly getting all the top minutes there. I think next season could be a really huge step in his development path. And if you're a team that has a top prospect, you want them in a prestigious program. The London Knights are the upper echelon of prestigious programs in the OHL. I would even argue they are the crown jewel program in the OHL. So that's where you want them to be. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Ottawa Senators to be attached to this guy, right? You got Michael Andlauer and Steve Staios are OHL guys. He hogs a lot of the spotlight in the OHL as far as defensemen go, except for another guy we're going to get to. And you mentioned it. Pooley talks about size, speed, good character. Sam Dickinson's got it all. And if you look at the industry chatter of EP's guide where they talk about scouts, they're so divided on him. Like some are like, oh, this kid's the real package. You guys at EP have him too low. Hockey guys love him. And then other scouts are like, I'm worried about that hockey sense. I'm worried if he's not able to figure it out, then he's just going to be a safe, projectable two-way defenseman. And that's where
every team needs him though, Pills.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like that's not meant to be a negative thing. It's just like, if you're spending a top 10 pick on a guy, you might have aspirations more than a second pair two-way defenseman, right? And that's where you start to value, okay, as a guy like Sam Dickinson, are you leaving more talent and upside on the table when you draft a guy like him? And then the second part is, do you care? Like who cares how good all these other players are if you get your stable, steady, big, mobile defenseman? Does it really matter? That's the question.
And the answer will be had on draft night. But if your team took Sam Dickinson, you're in good hands on the left side going forward. Sam Dickinson comes in number 7 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft rankings with a 7.6. All right, on the other side of the coin for the best OHL defensive prospect. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Sens, your team every day. All right. A reminder, you can find us on Twitter at Sens Central and the show everywhere you get podcasts, including on YouTube. All right. Coming in at number 6 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft ranking, a dazzling offensive magician from the back end. It's right shot defenseman Zayne Parekh of the Saginaw Spirit.
Whew, now we're getting into some real dynamic skill, Ross. Zayne Parekh is arguably one of the most offensively gifted defenseman, not just in this draft, Ross, but coming out of the OHL. We haven't seen a guy like this in a long time. Like, this guy put up historic numbers for the Saginaw Spirit this season. And we talked about Sam Dickinson being in the Mem Cup final. Well, Zayne Parekh and the Spirit won the Mem Cup. So you love to see that. In 66 games, he had 33 goals, 63 assists, good for 96 points. So 30 more points than games played. He was a plus 39 in the playoffs, kept things going. In 13 games, he had 2 goals, 9 assists, good for 11 points. Ross, getting 30 goals in the OHL as a defenseman is wild. In fact, in 50 years of OHL, only 2 defensemen have scored 30 or more goals. Like, this doesn't just happen all the time here. Zayne Parekh, he had an incredible season, and it deserves a lot of spotlight.
Of course it does. He put up historic numbers even the year before when he scored 21 goals, not this season, but last. It was the most by a U8, U17 defenseman in OHL history. And what does he do for an encore? 96 points, Pilsy. Like, are you kidding me? This guy was an absolute magician out there, and he makes it look easy. A lot of these are just catch it at the point, boom, huge evasive move to the right, and then just rip a wrist shot. So many of these, and they weren't necessarily the most overpowering wrist shots. He just knows where to put the puck to have a great chance at scoring. 33 goals from the back end. It's truly remarkable what this kid does offensively at 6 feet tall, 178 pounds. Bit older than Sam Dickinson. Zayne Parekh will turn 19 in February, so through the middle of the year. But all scouts, and McKean's a little bit lower on him, but everyone else agrees that this guy's dynamic and could be a top 5 pick in this draft. Elite prospects at 5, Wheeler at 5, Button at 5, Bob McKenzie at 7. Of course, he's got one more rankings to go. And then Chris Peters at 8, Corey Prodman at 9, and McKean's at 11. Zayne Parekh through the playoffs, I think, I if I'm not mistaken, was playing with a little bit of an injury at some point. Yep. Fell off towards the end for sure. That London series did not go his way. He missed a couple games in there as well. But man, when he was on his game throughout the year, there's not a lot of nights that he took off. Like, he was just the model of consistency, which is what I think impresses me a lot. And then you find out off the ice how smart this kid is. Graduated high school at 15. And he's been taking college courses since then. I think I was still 15 in grade 9, like in my first year of high school. So to know that he's that ahead of the game in terms of thinking, and you assume it would translate into hockey IQ. It certainly looks like it when you see the way that he plays and glides out there and makes it look easy. I'm getting higher and higher on Zayne Parekh. The more that you watch the highlights, the more that you hear people talking about him. It's a high upside player here with Parekh.
Ross, I'm very excited about Parekh. I got a lot to say on him, so if I'm just rambling and running off course here and you want to try to get a word in, you just tell me, because I could go all day about why I am interested in Zayne Parekh as a prospect for the Ottawa Senators. He finished tied 5th in total points in the OHL, not for a defenseman, total points. He had 34 power play points. He was the CHL Defenseman of the Year. Like, this guy just does so many things right. EP's Mitch Brown did an article on him. I would implore everyone to go check that out, because there's a lot to get into there. He really likes his ability to get pucks through, creating chances for teammates. What I love about Zayne Parekh, Ross, offensively, he's exclusively a wrist shot guy. You guys know I love the wrist shot defenseman. It just creates so many more opportunities for different offensive plays. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good clap bomb from the point that just powers through and a goalie can't see it, and an emphatic celly. Nothing wrong with that. The Dion Phaneuf special, that's an exciting play. However, if you're a defenseman that uses a wrist shot, you're going to be able to get it through traffic a lot easier. You can have a lot more accurate of a shot. You're going to be able to have that low wrister that hits off pads, shin pads, sticks, and it allows for chaos in front of the net. Whereas if you have teammates that are parked out there, they're going to get juicy opportunities. And arguably one of the best abilities of Zayne Parekh, which is saying a lot, is his ability to have that deceptive shot pass is so good because he always wrist shots it. When he's loading up for a wrist shot, you have to take it serious that he's shooting it on net. And then when all the other players are puck watching and focus on him and doing the flamingo pose, trying to block the shot, he does a shot pass to his teammate backdoor right on the tape and it's in. Like he just sets up offense so easily, and he has no fear of bringing that puck. If he starts loading up that wrist shot and doesn't see an option, Ross, he'll bring it all the way down the half wall. If by the time he gets to the half wall, he still doesn't see a play, he'll bring it behind the net. A defenseman playing in Gretzky's office, comfortable, moving from side to side, doing a wraparound, allowing his teammates to find open ice. Like when the puck is on his stick in the offensive zone, there's no limits to what he can do.
And he played his best hockey in the Memorial Cup. Especially, I watched the first game there. He had a goal and 2 assists against Moose Jaw. He was ridiculous. He's so poised with the puck. It just looks easy. The question is, Pilsy, can he maneuver like that at the NHL level? Because his straightaway speed is not a number one attribute for him. Because you keep seeing like, oh, this guy's Erik Karlsson at his peak. If he does pan out, I don't think he skates quite like Erik Karlsson. His first 2 steps where he was gone, I don't think Parekh has that breakaway speed the way that Karlsson does. But in the offensive zone, the creativity, the slap passes, the way that they're getting around defenders. Yeah, I certainly see a bit of a resemblance there. He's a human highlight reel, but how projectable is his skill? Because we've seen the other half of that argument with Sam Dickinson, a guy who's safe, dependable. Parekh, a lot more all over the ice.
Great question, Ross. I love that. If you want to know what EP thinks about it, they awarded him the best 4-way mobility. So you talk about that straightaway speed not being there. There's no better 4-way mobility skater in the draft, according to EP. So that's what you want. The best offensive defenseman. So it's not like, if you're shooting for the stars, you're going to completely miss here. You're going to land with some offensive abilities. 3rd best vision, 3rd highest ceiling, 4th best transition D. So you got 4-way mobility, you got offense, you got vision, you got potential, and you have a transition player. Like the biggest knocks on him are, this is a guy that, where do we have him? 6 feet, 178 pounds. So not huge, especially a defenseman. You want a little more size. That's certainly fair to be looking for in a defenseman. So his biggest knocks are sometimes puck retrievals, like in the corner. He's not the guy that you want for that.
He just has a bit of a choppy stride.
Yeah, I mean,
that's something that can be, I think, worked on. I think this is a very, I'd rather this than questions about his vision or hockey sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Ross. Like, even these are small knocks, in my opinion, to continue the lack of the physical game, obviously, and engaging in puck battles. I just think everything else is so top tier. Like, let's say, Ross, he was 4th best 4-way mobility, 3rd best offensive defenseman, 5th best vision. Like, if he was a little less in all those things, but he's near the damn top at 4 or 5 different spots here. And we were talking about this before we recorded, but the way I look at Zayne Parekh is you have such an opportunity to swing on high upside for an offensive right shot. I don't think we mentioned that yet, which is crazy. Right shot defenseman here, guys. Ottawa Senators fans, maybe you just woke up now. You're like, okay, I'm interested now. You've got a potential to swing on huge offensive upside here. And then if you do miss, Ross, you have that safety net of 4-way mobility and high hockey IQ to fall on if he doesn't hit that high offense. Like, if he doesn't turn into Erik Karlsson offensively, you're still going to have a defenseman that skates among the best 4-way mobility-wise. I know you don't love his straightaway speed and stride. That's fine. I think he's going to be able to maneuver just fine in the NHL. And then you've got a guy whose hockey IQ is among the best in his class. He graduated high school when he's 15, Ross. This guy's smart. So if I'm going to take a swing on high upside like that, I want to be able to fall back on really solid foundational skills. And Zayne Parekh has those.
Oh, he's got all the foundational skills offensively, but there's one scout in the EP chat, industry chatter, that says, look, if I'm playing against him in the playoffs, I want it in his corner. Like, I want to put pressure on him. And I guess it's just something he's going to have to learn. And it's won't be the first, won't be the last thing that he's learned the way he's buzzing through books throughout his academic career. But all jokes aside, I think that he will adjust, and he's obviously going to be very focused and disciplined. And I think the Sens are a team that always says, we're drafting the person as well as the player. And I mean, it seems like this guy's a top-notch dude. So I think that he could be very well Steve Stais and company's favorite for the pick at 7th overall. Now, the question to me, and which is why one of my topics on the side here, Pillsy, is he a risky pick in the top 5? Because forget about the top 10. I think what he did in the playoffs and in the Memorial Cup, despite not being 100%, at least through the playoffs, then I think he's top 5 material. Like, could a team even as high as Anaheim or Columbus or Utah, could they jump at the opportunity to draft Parekh before Ottawa even has a chance?
I think top 5 is a little rich, Ross. Not because he doesn't have top 5 upside, but just with the way the draft is, I think you're gonna want a different crop of player there. I think 6, 7, 8. I think he's going to one of those picks guaranteed. It seems like that's his range there. I think you're looking at this from two sides. You got the scouts that say, look at the playoffs now. All the best teams have big, strong defensemen, and that's totally fair. And then other people are like, well, look at a guy like Quinn Hughes. Sure, didn't go as far in the playoffs as you want, but he's an elite number 1 defenseman. And that's what you could be getting with Zayne Parekh here. It's either the Sens go with the safe, big, projectable OHL guy, or they take a big swing on high offensive talent from an OHL defenseman. I would love for the Sens to be deciding between these two on draft day, and whoever ends up in their lap, they just take. Honestly, that would be fine with me.
5 stars?
Zayne Parekh is a 5-star player for me. Like, this is the guy. This is the opportunity to take a big swing when you've got skating, high hockey IQ, offensive upside, and a right shot defenseman. I just think it would be wild to let Zayne Parekh pass you by if you had the opportunity to draft him for the Ottawa Senators.
Zayne Parekh comes in at number 6 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft rankings with an average of 7.1. For more draft profiles, go check us out on YouTube at Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy, no final thoughts from you. I want one final thought, and it's which one is ranked higher on your list, Sam Dickinson or Zayne Parekh?
Well, Ross, I don't think we got to my Sens stars on Sam Dickinson, so I'll say it here. I gave Sam Dickinson 4 stars, so not even 4.5. I do like the player, and if the Sens end up with him, I'll be happy, but I just think you can take a bigger swing here. I've got Zayne Parekh. I do mine daily as we go along here, so Zayne Parekh is my top-rated prospect at number 6, and I've got Dickinson at number 9 with Tija Ginla and Berkeley Catton ahead of him.
Okay, nice. I've been grouping those 4 defensemen that I love at the top of the draft, Levshunov, Buium, Parekh, and Dickinson, but I might be tempted to move Dickinson down 1 or 2 spots. Still a great player, but I truly do think the closer we get to the draft that you have to take the high upside swings.
Yes, Ross.
Earlier. And that's why I'm debating Levshunov and Parekh right now. That's my big thing. I think Zeev Buium's my top defenseman. I think just the consistency in everywhere he plays. We'll get to him tomorrow, maybe. But what I will say about Parekh is just the bust ratio, I think, is so overblown. I think even if he ends up sliding as a number 4, number 3 defenseman, like if he takes an Evan Bouchard path, I think that's not the worst. Like, it's not obviously ideal, but I think that could be a more realistic rise to prominence for Zayne Parekh. But he could also jump in and score 40 points his first year, and I wouldn't be surprised. He's going back for one more year, easily a junior. But after that, then you're in a situation where you could see him just skip the AHL completely and jump in to NHL action. Hope everyone enjoyed today's show. My answer as well as Zayne Parekh. So Parekh, we are a Zayne Parekh podcast, even though we did just select Sam Dickinson in our most recent mock draft with all our Locked On hosts. You can hear why over on YouTube. We posted just the clip of that segment. So you can always find clips and full episodes on YouTube. A subscription does help the show grow. Thanks so much for watching, listening, engaging with the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave it down below. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.